Welcome to the Happy Recruiting Show with Jody Brandstetter. Thank you to our sponsor, Talent Acquisition Evolution, a community for recruiting professionals to connect, learn, and work together. Today's show, we have a conversation about the future of talent acquisition and how AI machine learning can help our industry thrive with Dave Mekelburg, Chief of Staff and Head of People at Wade and Wendy. Hi, Dave. Welcome to the Happy Recruiting Show. And would love for you to first just kind of start with telling us a little bit about yourself.
Cool. Well, great to be here. So thanks for having me. I am Dave Mekelburg. I am the head of people and chief of staff for a company called Wade and Wendy. We automate the top of the recruiting funnel for companies and also provide an AI career guide for job seekers. So our vision is today, the average job search takes around 60 days. We want to bring AI and automation into that to bring that 60 down to 6. So a world where you can be at the right job in less than a week. I also help organize the recruitment automation community. So you're going to hear me probably talk a little bit about that as well.
And then what part of Michigan are you in?
I am in Ann Arbor, Michigan, which is where the University of Michigan is. And it's about a 40-minute drive from Detroit. So we are about here on the hand. So Southeast Michigan is what the region is called.
Gotcha. Now, when I first met you, we talked a little bit about Cincinnati Chili and that you had already experienced Cincinnati Chili. I think it was a roommate or something, maybe from college. So tell us a little bit about how you discovered our chili and what were your thoughts around it?
So my history with Cincinnati Chili goes way back. As a child, for some reason, I grew up outside Baltimore, and for some reason, there was a chili restaurant in my town that served what they called Cincinnati style chili. So I was aware that Cincinnati had a style of chili. And when one of my roommates in college said, "Hey, we're going down to Cincinnati," I was like, "I really want to try Cincinnati chili," and he's like, "Great, that was on the list. I was going to show it to you anyways." I loved it. I love the kind of Midwestern. I love chili as a piece of something else on a hot dog, on a bowl with cheese and onions. Like, I love that stuff. I love the kind of sweet and kind of cinnamony sort of flavor. So I'm one of those people that didn't, and I also learned actual Cincinnati chili is nothing like the Cincinnati chili that I had as a kid. But even out from someone outside the region, I loved it. I think it's very special. It's a very particular flavor.
Now, when you came, did you have Skyline or Gold Star?
Skyline. Yeah. I'm not trying to think if I even had Gold Star. Skyline was the first. I think we literally drove down, in like the middle of winter, and before we even got to his house, we went to a Skyline Chili, and I looked around and I was like, "This is it, Cincinnati Chili in Cincinnati. I'm here."
So tell me, is there a specific cuisine in Ann Arbor that you guys are known for, or a restaurant that if we're up there, we should definitely try?
There is. So so in Ann Arbor proper, so there's a famous deli here called Zingerman's. So awesome, pastrami. They have a whole cheese and shop associated with it. It's wonderful. It's the place that it's most known for. I could give you a list a mile long of general restaurants. Broadly, so we're in kind of the greater Detroit area, and the foods that are really special here. So Detroit style pizza, which is starting to become very popular around the world, or around the country at least, which is kind of in between New York and Chicago style pizza. It's relatively thick with cheese baked into the crust. It's lovely. We have our own style of coney dogs here, which is not a term I knew before I moved here, which is a hot dog with onions, mustard, cheese, and chili sauce, which is fantastic, very special. And the last thing is there's a big Lebanese community here. So the Lebanese food is the best in the country. In general, you get great Middle Eastern food here. Really special baklava at Shatila, which is about 20 minutes from where I live. I've been all over the world, the Middle East, Greece, and the best baklava I've ever had is in Dearborn, Michigan. Go figure.
Right. Well, definitely a lot of different things that people can be trying in Michigan, especially kind of in the Detroit area. But let's turn the conversation over to talent acquisition. So I really would like to understand what were some of the reasons why you all decided it was so important to shift that 60 days to 6 days. What were some of the key things that you found, like maybe candidate experience or business reasons, why you think it's important to kind of make that, I guess, time to fill or time to find that job a shorter time frame?
Yeah, so I mean, there's two sides of hiring, right? And and personally, I've felt both pains. I've had to hire a team of 30 people in 6 months, and felt the pain of living on the phone and trying to get the right people in the door. And I've felt the pain of not having the right person at the company, and what that means for everybody on the team. And there's too much work. It's, you're missing the expertise that you need. Everyone's a little extra stressed out. And, there's a real pain, and to say nothing of kind of the estimated business losses of not having the right person on your team. So, the quicker you can fill that seat, anybody that's worked in TA knows, the faster you fill the seat, the better it is for everybody, especially and importantly with the right person. If it's the wrong person, it doesn't really matter. And on the other side, I've looked for a job before. It's the worst. And every study out there shows what a traumatic experience that can be. And especially with everything that's happening, been happening over the last year at scale, it's just, getting to wake up and work on this problem every day is just an absolute privilege, because it's such an important problem for, people, and, and hiring attracts people interested in solving people problems. Yeah, so, we started there with the root of how can we solve this huge problem. It's a huge business problem. It's a huge people problem. And there's so much running in place when it comes to kind of TA. So much of the same work over and over and over again, that, is pushing the same buttons, entering the same keywords, asking the same 5 questions that aren't really necessary for a human being to ask. Like asking, if you can show up to the office, or if, the current hours work for you. Those are not helpful human conversations. If you were catching up with someone, if you were telling somebody why your company's awesome, or trying to understand what they were looking for in a job, you wouldn't be asking, like a normal human conversation wouldn't take you to what's your work authorization status. Like that's just not, that doesn't facilitate great human interaction for anybody. So we started there and thought about how can we take these annoying, repetitive, rote kind of tasks off of people's plate. And that's, when we talk about automation and think about that, that's how we think about automation and the power of AI. There's a couple other places too. The other side of it is that humans are really bad at hiring. We have, 1,000 years of data to show that humans are right about like 2/3 of the time. And, we think that could be better. And with the addition of AI and humans working together, we can kind of figure out, all right, well, how do we get the right person into this job? So that's where we started, just a quick solve. And that's what we've been working on ever since.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people have this assumption that AI and machine learning can be very stale or robotic, or, there's all these assumptions about it. But if you use it right and you put it in the right spaces, it really does help the process. You can push the process going forward faster. And it is, right? I ask questions that I have memorized for the past 20 years in talent acquisition that no other person would really truly ask that question. So I totally get that, and so having these type of tools now, I think, can really help us become more strategic as far as talent acquisition professionals. So I want to know from you, kind of, where do you see the future of talent acquisition going? How can we stay relevant with having machine learning, automation, AI? What are the core things that we should be preparing ourselves so that we are, bringing our best self and bringing our industry forward with the future of work?
Yeah. So, it's the $1 trillion question, right? And the things that I see, for talent acquisition today, there's a couple of different pieces of the equation. One is, management of the tools and the data that's coming in. One of the things that a lot of these technologies have provided recruiters on the ground, leaders up above, is real insight into what's happening in the process today. And, importantly, how can we structure and think about the recruiting process to create an incredible candidate experience, but also create a process that's getting the right information to help the organization make its decision. So, there's an element of TA, which is kind of being the technology manager, making sure these things are working. And, if you think about kind of building a factory, it's not that a factory doesn't need humans making sure that the machines are working. Like, part of TA is going to be focused on the actual implementation of technologies to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do and the outcomes are working appropriately. And if they're not, well, okay, how do we calibrate and change these things? Most AI systems today are heavily reliant on not just people making decisions, yes, no, things like that, but actual input and saying, okay, here's the problem we need to solve. Here's how this is evolving. Here are some new benchmarks we want to hit, because hiring is always changing. What's important to organizations is always changing, and technology helps that, but you need people that are kind of managing that side of the process. So I think one corner of TA are going to be almost like implementation managers, like thinking about, it's not the right word, technology like owners is really like the best way to think of it. And that's not one person, that is a group of people that are looking at how technology is actually being implemented at the human level across the organization and how it's impacting hiring. The other side of it is we are, and we've been doing this for a while now, we are big believers that humans are necessary to the recruitment process. And there, whether that is to let people know that this opportunity is real, and that, we've seen mass hiring where there's tons of automation, and, companies like Amazon have seen this, where they've inserted like a human into the process just for a 5-minute conversation to say, hey, we're going to see you on Monday. Like, great to meet you. And, thinking about it that way. But there's a real role for, continuing to shape marketing, branding, relationship management, guiding people through the process. And humans are still the best at doing that. Machines are great at giving people an opportunity to tell their story and to help make evaluation decisions and really help automate that top of the funnel kind of process. But what you choose to do with those insights and the relationships that you can build on top of that technology, I think that's really important, because people, as technology on the candidate side, takes up more and more and more and more of the process, it makes those human relationships and those human touch points that much more of a differentiator. And what we're seeing is, this kind of a broad vision, and not just in recruiting, and this is a broader technology and kind of marketing and sales kind of question, but how can you create a special personal experience for somebody? And, if you could, I'm sure most recruiters would want to talk to every single candidate, build a great relationship, spend a day with them, take them on the tour of the office, like go the whole 9 yards, but they can't. What technology allows you to do is reach people, engage with them, have that experience at scale, and then save that human moment as the kind of, the cherry on top of the candidate experience. And I just don't think that's going anywhere. And I think that recruiters need to understand how to use all the technology that's flowing in, and all this new data and assessment layers that are coming in to build that relationship and guide people and route them appropriately through the process. So I don't think that's actually going anywhere. I just think it's going to look different. And yeah, so that's kind of the near term. Like, those are things that are happening today. Maybe in the future we're all going to have VR headsets on and interacting with AI recruiters, and in that capacity. I don't know. But I think we're years away from that. And I just think that humans want to work with other humans. There's an irrationality to the decision, right? And if you've ever looked for a job, especially if you've, had the luxury of weighing more than one offer, part of, okay, like you have real questions, like what is the work-life balance? What is the salary like? What is the job description? But a big piece of it is, are these people I want to work with? Like, are their values, is their mission important to me? And, those are human questions. And I think humans need to be the one to answer those questions.
So I really like kind of that whole piece. And it's interesting because I think that a lot of people try to just throw technology into their process without looking at it and saying, well, how can I make this feel like us? How can I brand it? How can I communicate it? And so a lot of candidates are experiencing these really bad candidate experience with automation, because companies aren't. So what are some things that you guys do to ensure that your clients are using the technology in the right way?
That's an incredible question. So there are a couple different components. The first is, when we started, the first thing that we did, especially when it comes to kind of conversational AI and chatbots, is we just tested the heck out of it with candidates to make sure we understood what their expectations from the experience were, what was valuable to them, like what did they enjoy. And, the feedback was startling. I mean, our first question was, will anyone talk to a chatbot about work? Like, will people do this? And, what we found is people were really appreciative of the opportunity. And I'll say, some of the stories that people told and how they mapped on to work, and the personal stories that people told were unlike anything I'd ever seen in any interview, like process or transcript or notes. People telling stories about surviving terrorist attacks and things that had happened in their life, and challenges they overcame. What we found is there's people don't feel judged when they're communicating with technology, but that doesn't happen by accident. That happens by designing an experience that people can trust. So we work with organizations to make sure, first of all, what does this experience look and feel like? Is it the right length? Is it too long, too short? How are we communicating about these things? How are we making sure that know-how is being filtered into the experience? The other side is, you have to measure what's happening. So one of the things that we do when we start is, okay, like, what does success look like? What are you actually trying to, what are the things that are important to the organization? And that may not have necessarily anything to do with technology, right? It could just be, okay, we want to get, our today, it takes us X amount of days to fill a job. We want to make that faster. We want to get back to our candidates faster because the black hole that they exist today in is not very great. We want to increase the slate of our diversity hiring, and we want to increase our retention rate because we've been getting people in the door, but it hasn't been quite right. So we can look through and we can start to measure these things downstream and set up things to determine, how the top of funnel is translating to the middle of your funnel and kind of beyond. And one of the cool things about a lot of technology, and not just our tool, is that you can really visualize how people are coming into the process and how people are interacting with these tools, where drop off is happening. You can start to correlate success, or at least retention, with how people are, not just performing isn't necessarily the right word, but how people are coming into the organization. And I think that data really helps democratize the hiring process, and gives people a really quick snapshot of, okay, hey, this is a big part of our recruitment marketing brand, but when we tested it in our chatbot, we found that people really respond to our community service and really don't care about our 401k program, or maybe vice versa. Maybe the fact that you have a really healthy, a really substantial benefits package is the differentiator in your talent market. Those types of insights are, again, where humans can look at technology and help make sure this is kind of rolling out appropriately.
I think what you're talking about is like the understanding your candidate persona, your ideal candidate, knowing what type of journey, so their candidate journey, and then building that hiring blueprint so that you have all the technology, you have the touch points, you know who should be communicating what, chatbot versus maybe actual person, and you're building it based off of who you actually are trying to attract to the position. And I think that's where every organization can be more strategic and be able to bring that. And then when you have data to add onto it and you can show how that is going to benefit the organization, it just helps the business stand by and say, yeah, I believe in what my TA team's doing. I'm going to provide the dollars, or I'm going to ensure that they have everything they need to be successful because they have a legit process that's going to work for them. And so I love everything you're talking about. And I know you talk about, there's absolutely other automation companies out there, right? There's other AI companies. And so you have this community of recruiting automation community that's a virtual community. I would love to know more about it. Who's in it? What do you like offer to those people, and how can people join if people with the evolution want to be a part of this community?
Yep. So, one of the things that one of the sort of things that I feel very lucky about in my role is I get to meet people across the hiring landscape. So the recruitment automation community is a community of a little over 5,000 professionals today, mostly talent acquisition, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging professionals, and then HR, talent management, learning and development. And then, so that's probably about 85% of the group. And then about 15% are technology leaders, technology practitioners, people that are trying to solve problems in the space. So we try to bring all these folks together, and really it's about the intersection of human process with technology. And really at the end of the day, it's about pushing the hiring process forward and pushing this very human process forward. So we hold quarterly virtual conferences, which are incredible. And we've had dozens of executives from the Fortune 500, some of the biggest companies on earth, as well as just great voices in the space. We're always looking to highlight new voices in the space as well. We have a social component. We have done a fundraiser for Code 2040 and raised several $1,000s for them. That's a nonprofit focused on increasing Black and Latinx representation in technology. We had a roundtable session connecting out-of-work TA professionals with resources to help them find a new role. So we have this kind of social component, and then importantly, we try to have fun. So at our last virtual conference, we had a virtual visit to a llama farm. We have had a magician. We did a mixology mix-off. We had travel writers giving tours of their apartments around the world. So it's really a way to bring the community together to figure out how we can solve some of the biggest problems in hiring today, whether that's improving the situation with the unemployment crisis and how TA can impact that. It's moving diversity and inclusion forward and thinking holistically about how do we make automation work for humans, like for recruiting teams and for candidates. In addition to the conferences, which as you can tell are a ton of fun, we write a weekly newsletter. We have a LinkedIn community. You can find us, just search RAC, R-A-C, and we're right there. We have the podcast I mentioned before, which is fantastic. We usually have a TA and occasionally technology leader on weekly to talk about what's going on in hiring today. And you can find us at recruitmentautomationcommunity.com. So you can check things out there. And sign up for the newsletter where we usually shout things out. We try to do, we're always trying to look for new things and new ways to connect with people. So, we're scheduling a Clubhouse hangout. We've done little micro meetups on an app called Upstream, which is a really great networking community app. So we just realized there's not a lot of places for people to get together and talk about these things and really have an honest and intense and actionable conversation. So honest and actionable are our keywords. We want people to come and have real conversations about this stuff, but also anybody that reads our newsletter, that comes to an event, comes away with something they can do, whether you are the head of global talent for a Fortune 15 company, or you are in your first day as your first job out of college as a recruiter, and just trying to figure out how to make heads or tails of what's going on.
I always love talking to you, Dave. But I'm sure people might want to try to connect with you after this. Tell me, how can people reach out to you and be able to connect with you?
Oh, that's a great question. So if you try to add me on LinkedIn and mention this podcast, I will accept your invite immediately. So feel free to message me. If you sign up for the newsletter, if you enjoyed hearing me talk and want to read me write, I write our newsletter each week. So you'll hear this, but in typed form every week. So you can connect there. I'm on Twitter as Dave, Dave Meky, Meky. So you can find me there. And those are the primary places that I live.
Awesome. I will make sure I add that to the notes so that people are able to connect with you. And I'll definitely add the Recruitment Automation Community website so that people can get. We really appreciate your time and all the information that you provided to us.
Awesome. This has been great. Thank you so much, Jody. Every chance I get to talk to you is always so much fun. And I'm just really excited. Like, if you can't tell, moving hiring forward is urgent. It's a real problem. So one of the things that, there's a lot going on in the world. And one of the things that keeps me optimistic and excited about coming to work every day and is just getting the chance to connect with people that are pushing things forward and see the possibilities, hearing the incredible work that people are doing. It's, there are days, and this conversation is going to be one of them, where, I hang up, I press leave on the Zoom. It usually takes me a couple clicks. And, I get to the other end and I'm like, wow, that person is really moving things forward. And that's really cool. So thank you for having me. And this has been great.
Thank you for watching this episode. Like what you saw? Make sure you follow Talent Acquisition Evolution on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Happy recruiting.